Listen to the absolute chilling silence echoing from the West Wing right now. Donald Trump just slammed face first into a dose of reality from the very place he never saw coming. What we are witnessing is an unfolding diplomatic catastrophe, playing out in agonizing real time. And for once, the famed art of the deal isn't merely failing. It's actively tearing down the American economy. The White House was so sure, so arrogantly certain, that a pressure campaign against Canada would be a fast, simple win, a quick flex of muscle to show the world that this new administration was serious. They genuinely thought Ottawa would instantly cave, that the mere threat of tariffs would bring them to their knees, allowing Trump to claim a victory lap before the first snow. But here's the shock. That didn't happen. Instead of submission, Trump was met with a calculated, coordinated, and sophisticated wall of resistance that has left his entire team desperately scrambling for an escape route. Frankly, it's stunning that he didn't predict this outcome. We are talking about more than just a neighbor. We're talking about our largest trading partner, a country whose economy is stitched into the fabric of our own, at a cellular level. Yet, he chose to treat them like a bothersome, distressed tenant in one of his buildings. This goes beyond a simple misjudgment. This reveals a profound, fundamental failure to understand how leverage operates in the complex modern world. And believe me, the devastating fallout from this massive blunder is going to echo through the halls of Washington for months, maybe even years. Let me pull back the curtain and tell you what's truly happening behind the scenes, because the picture is far uglier than the headlines suggest. So let's look at how this whole crisis was engineered. Donald Trump swept back into office with a clear mission to disrupt the global order, and he immediately fixated on the USMCA, the very trade agreement he himself signed, as his first target. He loudly declared it was no longer fair, claiming Canada was essentially cheating us on everything from dairy imports to digital services. From the moment he took his oath in January 2025, he seemed desperate to create a crisis where absolutely none existed. He needed a punching bag, a villain, and decided our famously polite neighbor to the north was perfect for the role. Whether it was his manic, late-night posts on Truth Social threatening to physically shut down the border, his aggressive demands for unilateral changes to energy policies, or his public humiliating insults directed at Canadian officials, Trump cemented himself as a leader who sees diplomacy as nothing more than a zero-sum game of dominance. He doesn't want allies, he wants subjects. But this is where the tires hit the road. This time he isn't dealing with a fragmented Europe or a rival China. He is dealing with a country that understands our economy just as intimately as we do. And now, here's where the story gets absolutely wild. Weeks into this escalating standoff, the real-world consequences are piling up fast. American auto assembly plants in Ohio are already idling because essential parts are stuck in customs. Lumber prices in Arizona are suddenly through the roof, adding thousands of dollars to the cost of a new home build. Farmers in Wisconsin are watching their vital export markets vanish overnight. This entire nightmare is unfolding because the White House is completely frozen, paralyzed by the shocking realization that their powerful bluff was instantly called. And guess who's stuck right in the center of the crossfire? The American worker, the very people Trump promised to champion, are the ones absorbing the crushing cost of his ego trip. But here is the absolute kicker. The Canadians aren't just politely declining, they are actively checkmating him, guided by key strategic minds like Mark Carney, who is advising on the economic counter-response. Ottawa has simply refused to engage in the theatrics. They aren't holding dramatic press conferences to scream or shout. Instead, they are quietly, surgically executing a strategic diversification plan that simply cuts the United States out of the loop. And before we move on, let's be honest for a second. We have to grasp the central psychology at play here. Trump cannot, under any circumstances, handle being ignored. He thrives on conflict, but he starves on indifference. When he throws a tantrum and the other side simply goes about their professional business, it drives him absolutely mad. Back to the matter at hand. Reports from deep inside the Oval Office around late October revealed just how toxic the atmosphere had become. Sources tell us that Trump absolutely exploded after receiving a briefing on the Canadian countermeasures, reportedly labeling the Canadian leadership as ungrateful and nasty. He allegedly threw a binder across the room and demanded his aides find something, anything, to hurt them. This means the President of the United States was essentially asking his staff to weaponize the full power of the federal government against a close ally, solely because his feelings were hurt. And this wasn't a private outburst contained within the walls of the executive residence. Trump made sure to take his grievances public, launching a media blitz to accuse Canada of betrayal and threatening to invoke emergency powers to seize Canadian assets. This unprecedented announcement sent shockwaves through the Senate because it raised profound questions about the absolute limits of executive power. If the president can declare a national emergency over milk quotas, what is the check on him doing it over anything else? This isn't the first time we've seen this destructive spiral. Donald Trump's loyalty extends only to himself, and his working definition of treason is simply disagreement. We have witnessed this pattern relentlessly. He demands total submission and ruthlessly destroys anyone, friend or foe, who dares to offer anything less. Think about how he turned on Jeff Sessions. Sessions was his very first Senate backer, the man who gave him immense credibility with the hard right. Yet, the instant Sessions followed the law and recused himself from the Russia investigation, he became the enemy. Trump publicly humiliated him for months, not because Sessions performed poorly, but because he wouldn't break the rules for Trump. Then there was William Barr. Barr acted as the ultimate shield for Trump, spinning the Mueller report and intervening in crucial criminal cases. But Trump grew furious when Barr refused to seize voting machines in 2020. Barr drew a line at the Constitution, and for that Trump cast him out, publicly labeling him a swamp creature and a coward. And let's not forget Mike Pence. Pence served him with a level of sycophancy that was frankly painful to watch for 4 long years. But the moment Pence refused to single-handedly overturn an election, something he had absolutely no power to do, Trump turned the mob on him. Even Kevin McCarthy faced this fate. McCarthy went to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring after January 6th, rehabilitating Trump when he was at his lowest. But when McCarthy tried to actually govern the House and prevent a default, Trump let him twist in the wind. Now it appears Canada is squarely in the crosshairs. This destructive pattern has become agonizingly familiar. You can be the closest ally in the world. You can share a border, a language, and a culture. But the single moment you say no to Donald Trump, you are instantly reclassified and treated like a hostile combatant. So, what exactly did Canada do to provoke Donald Trump this severely? It all boils down to their steadfast refusal to violate the law. The impasse occurred because Trump demanded that Canada violate the established terms of the USMCA to grant the U.S. special unilateral exemptions that simply did not exist in the treaty. Ultimately, the entire breakdown happened because the Canadians insisted that a contract is, in fact, a contract. Mark Carney and the Canadian negotiating team chose to take a rules-based, principled stance. They calmly pointed to the existing dispute resolution mechanisms within the agreement, mechanisms Trump himself signed into law, and refused to simply bypass them. Their approach was exactly what you would expect from a G7 nation: professional, legalistic, and perfectly calm. At first, Trump seemed to believe this was merely a negotiating maneuver. He admires toughness and assumed they were simply haggling for a slightly better price. But here is where everything began to unravel. As the crisis violently dragged into November, it became brutally clear this wasn't a haggle. It was a complete rejection of his fundamental premise. The real-world consequences started to snowball. The price of essential Canadian oil imports began to rise as financial markets factored in the political risk. U.S. dairy farmers, who were supposed to be the great beneficiaries of this fight, found their shipments suddenly and indefinitely blocked at the border for inspections. While the Canadians remained steadfast in holding their ground, predictably, the American public began to shift their blame toward the chaos in Washington. Polls indicated that Americans were growing intensely frustrated with the sudden sharp spike in inflation and the profound uncertainty hanging over the economy. This was the moment Trump finally began to sweat. You see, Trump values the stock market above almost everything else. He treats the Dow Jones as his personal daily approval rating. He absolutely does not want to be tied to a market crash that is so clearly his own fault. That is certainly not the victory he craves. And then the Canadians made a strategic move that, in Trump's mind, was the ultimate insult. They started signing emergency supply agreements with the European Union and Pacific nations, effectively proving to the world that they could survive, even thrive, without the U.S. When Trump caught wind of this, he absolutely lost it. In his worldview, an ally having other options is a personal, deep betrayal. Diversification? That is pure treason. Any partner who dares to secure their own economic future is instantly labeled an enemy of America first. This has left the administration pinned in an impossible corner. On one side, Trump desperately needs to appear strong. He has staked his entire political identity on being the tariff man who brings the world to heel. His core base expects him to dominate, and backing down now would look like unforgivable weakness. On the flip side, he actually has to keep the U.S. economy functioning. That means figuring out how to stop the hemorrhaging in the manufacturing sector and preventing a full-blown recession before the midterms arrive. The truly tricky part is this: fixing the economy requires immediately de-escalating the fight, but de-escalating requires admitting he was wrong. So, the White House is caught in a debilitating bind. If they keep trying to crush Canada, they risk a full-blown economic depression in the border states, which paints the administration as incompetent and reckless. Or they can back down and respect the treaty, which means admitting that the art of the deal was an utter failure. And that will absolutely result in Trump feeling humiliated. It's the classic mess Trump creates for everyone around him. He demands utterly impossible outcomes and then unleashes his wrath on subordinates when simple reality intervenes. This entire scenario is causing major cracks and stress within the Republican Party itself. If Trump has turned on Canada and is willing to crash the entire economy just to soothe his ego, every single GOP senator is left wondering if their state is next on the chopping block. Those moderates attempting to delicately balance the needs of their constituents with their absolute loyalty to the MAGA movement are now worried sick. Tension became even more intense when Senator Mitt Romney, in one of his final acts of defiance, broke dramatically from the party line. He had been quietly pushing for a diplomatic resolution and publicly criticized Trump for throwing our economy off a cliff for the sake of a temper tantrum. When someone like Romney, who understands business and finance far better than Trump ever could, starts calling this economic suicide, you know we are in a world of serious hurt. Now, let's turn to the legal challenge, because this has escalated far beyond a mere political squabble. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce took decisive legal action on November 12th. They filed a massive lawsuit in federal court, arguing that Trump's attempt to use the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, to impose these tariffs was a massive and illegal overreach. They pointed out that IEEPA is explicitly meant for unusual and extraordinary threats, such as terrorism or war, not for standard trade disputes with a friendly neighbor. The legal process has moved swiftly, with the judge recognizing the immediate urgency. After all, every single day these tariffs remain in place translates to millions of dollars in lost revenue. The system was meticulously designed to prevent one man from wrecking the economy on a whim. But Trump has always been deeply uncomfortable with such limitations. He craves total, unchecked control. If this EPA violation is allowed to stand, it provides a monumental boost to excessive executive power. And that opens a terrifying door for future leaders to severely misuse that power. So the implications of this case extend far beyond mere trade policy. It's about shaping the entire structure of our government for generations to come. Each time Trump brazenly brushes aside established norms, intentionally breaks laws, or viciously attacks our allies, it fundamentally weakens our democratic systems. It starts making behavior that was once completely unacceptable begin to feel disturbingly normal. Think about it. If Trump can treat Canada like an enemy combatant, what's to stop the next leader from doing the exact same thing to the UK or Japan? If he can simply abuse emergency powers whenever he feels like it, what prevents another leader from following that dreadful lead? These destructive actions do not just vanish when Trump eventually leaves office. They become permanently embedded as part of our new, dangerous reality. Democracy absolutely relies on those foundational norms and institutions, assuming that people in power will honor the rules, even when it's politically inconvenient. When those norms crumble, democracy itself begins to falter. Looking ahead to the next election cycle, it is clear that all of this is going to have profound effects. We are still a year out from the midterms, but the narrative being cemented right now is bound to influence everything. If the story playing out is one of Trump aggressively battling every institution, destroying our key alliances, and crashing the economy, that spells immense trouble for the GOP. Voters rarely reward chaos and open dysfunction. They yearn for stability and competence. Right now, Trump is offering neither. So expect the opposition to champion a single powerful message focused on sanity. After years of exhausting chaos under Trump, a belief is building that if you simply vote for a check on his power, Washington might actually start working again. They are promising no more constant constitutional crises or ridiculous squabbles with our oldest friends, just good old-fashioned, normal governance. That message might just resonate deeply with a wide swath of voters, including some who were once loyal members of Trump's own party. Here is the ultimate takeaway. Donald Trump tried to bully his way to a symbolic win, and instead he broke the machine. This is not merely a failed negotiation. It is a frightening revelation of the hollowness and danger of his entire worldview. If we allow a president to govern purely by tantrum, then we are essentially declaring that competence no longer matters. That would mean we are stepping into a terrifying new realm where the loudest, angriest voice wins, regardless of the catastrophic destruction it causes. This is about so much more than trade tariffs. It is about whether we genuinely possess a system of checks and balances, or if we are simply stuck with whoever can abuse power the most effectively. So, keep a very close eye on this situation. Things are just now reaching their boiling point. The administration is in full panic mode, the courts are moving at lightning speed, and the economy is teetering precariously on the edge. The next few weeks are going to be absolutely crucial. We are just getting started. The stakes have never been higher, the evidence of dysfunction has never been stronger, and the final outcome has never been more unpredictable.